Welcome to On the Corner of Main Street, presented by Plaza Hotel and Casino in downtown Las Vegas. Here is Plaza CEO Jonathan Jossel, Gary Vickery, and I'm your host, Lisa Melmed. How you doing, Jonathan?
Hello, hello.
We are down here at Oscars. They're opening. You'll hear some hustling and bustling of everyone.
We're drinking.
We're drinking.
We're going to be in the way of customers here shortly.
Yes.
Yes, we are. But we wanted to mention on the last episode, which we forgot to do, is a congratulations to the new governor, Sheriff Joe Lombardo, and, of course, condolences to former governor Steve Sisolak. The reason I bring them both up is not because we want to be political, but because we want to show off that both of them have been guests on our podcast. We now have the former and the future governor of Nevada as guests. Joe Lombardo, upcoming governor, was a guest before he ran for governor even. And interestingly, I think, if I'm not mistaken, at the end of that episode, I asked him, so what's next? Because I'd heard the rumor that he was thinking of running for governor. And so anyway, congratulations to him. And if you're interested in that future governor, you can go back and hear all his story on the Corner of Main Street, one of the other episodes.
Classy acceptance speech, classy concession speech. We did it right in Nevada on that race.
I couldn't agree with you more, Rich. Yep. Also wanted to congratulate our friends down the street at the Fremont because they have a wonderful new addition to their property. And hopefully their general manager will be joining us on the podcast. But they've opened a new food hall, expanded casino, new sports book. As of this recording, it might be opening any day now. If you say that, you can't go wrong.
Yeah, congratulations.
That could mean a week, 2 weeks. Hey, Chelsea. You're very famous on this podcast. You're very famous on this podcast.
Oh, no.
What are we talking about, Lisa?
We have what I think is the most important piece of downtown history ever, which is Sippin' Santa at the Sand Dollar. We have...
Wow. I mean, talk about hyperbole. This thing is really cool, and you went there?
I think it's going to put the Sand Dollar on the map, for sure.
Okay.
Sippin' Santa is a tiki-themed pop-up Christmas bar at Sand Dollar. So it's now known as Sippin' Santa instead of Sand Dollar. It's open every day. It's completely transformed. New cocktails, all served in holiday drinkware. And
I mean, if you haven't seen this yet, the room looks insane.
Insane.
It's unbelievable.
It's so cool.
When were you last in there?
Last night.
Right. It is as cool as can be. You got to see it. It's here for another few more weeks, though. So
You
check
had
it out.
me
I'll
at
be here
Tiki
till
Bar.
December 31st until January 1st. Every day, 2 p.m. till 4 a.m. Stop on by.
Yeah.
Live music every night.
Yeah.
And the carousel construction's moving along, the reimagination of Main Street.
Yeah, we got proper walls. We got a casino building, basically, at this
amazing.
point. So it's coming together. We're still targeting mid-March for everything, but I believe some of the other elements will open sooner. And it is taking shape, though, so that's all that really matters to me, is we can see this. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel now.
Yes.
And I think it's going to work out well time-wise because it's going to get warm. You're going to hit March Madness, St. Patrick's Day, and it's going to be rocking downtown.
Awesome. Rockin'.
Looking forward to it.
Well, today's guest.
Yeah, today's guest is very special. I mean, I've been literally following his career since I was a kid, and I was always enamored by him. Just remembered seeing him either on TV or hearing his story about what he was doing. And I never thought I'd have the chance to become a friend of his and hang out with him, but knowing what he was doing was very cool. We do have a less proud moment in common where I got in trouble with the gaming control board during my licensing because I placed sports bets in the UK as a kid while I was in America, which was technically illegal, and the gaming control board would let me know that was very much illegal, and I could not do that. And Tim got in trouble for that too, so we share that in common. But he's got an incredible story and a real aficionado for the history of Vegas. We are very lucky to have a guy like that on our podcast.
Today, we are joined by a pioneer of the online travel industry and one of Las Vegas's gaming leaders. He's the former owner of Travelscape, former owner of Golden Nugget Las Vegas, former senior VP of Strategy and Development, and former COO for Wynn Las Vegas. Welcome, Tim Poster, to On the Corner of Main Street.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Welcome, Tim. This is a huge honor for us. In all seriousness, this is a big honor for a couple of reasons. One, I hear it's your first ever podcast.
It is my first.
So your first and maybe your last. We'll see how this goes. But we appreciate you being a part of this. On the Corner of Main Street is our podcast, which we hope one day will become a body of work where people look back and hear about old Vegas and the stories of Vegas and the people that were a part of Vegas. And honestly, this is going to sound weird. I came out here in 2005, and I was first introduced to you I didn't meet you as a person, but I was aware of you. Yeah. And you were at the Golden Nugget then, and I basically followed along your career for 15 years after that. And you're a legend of this town. You're an icon in this town. So I'm honored to have you here. And I feel like we'll be asking a lot of questions just listening, because you're a fascinating guy. So thank you for taking the time to join us. And we also appreciate you coming to the Last Dinner series.
Oh, yes. I enjoyed that a lot. Well, I'm very flattered you'd even want me, but I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, of course.
All right. So where are you from, and how did you end up in Las Vegas?
I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but my family moved to Vegas when I was only 6 in 1975. So I was here pretty much my whole life. Saw a lot change since then.
You were 6, you said?
6 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was it like as a 6-year-old growing up in Vegas, or even in the early years? What school did you go to here?
Well, I went to Will Beckley Elementary School off of Desert Inn Road in East Las Vegas. Then I went to Faith Lutheran Junior High, and then Bishop Gorman High School. Yeah, and then the only time I left Las Vegas was for college. Went to USC, but then quickly came back right after school.
If at any point, by the way, your cocktails run low, let me know.
That could happen.
Because happy to refill here in Oscars is easy.
Oh, very good.
Let me know at any time.
Yeah, we're having this in a bar. To me, that's perfect.
What are you drinking?
Vodka.
Nice.
Yeah.
I got a martini.
Cheers.
That's perfect. What is it? 3 o'clock in the afternoon? What could be better in Oscars, having a couple of drinks?
That's what could be better. What could be better?
And then, was it at Bishop Gorman you made a very important friend? Is that where you met Tom?
No. I made a lot of great friends at Gorman, still to this day my close friends. But Tom I didn't meet until college. How that happened was, first of all, Tom went to University of San Diego.
Tom
Breitling.
Breitling.
Yeah. Everyone thinks we were at school together, but we really weren't. He was at University of San Diego with Lorenzo Fertitta. They were roommates. I was at USC up in L.A., and often happened that I would go to San Diego on the weekend, or Lorenzo would come to L.A., or we'd meet in Las Vegas. And because Lorenzo and Tom had become good friends, and then later roommates and fraternity brothers, that's how I met Tom. And, we became good friends ever since. And obviously still with Lorenzo and a lot of the other guys there.
How did you know Lorenzo?
Lorenzo and I went to high school together.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been friends since freshman year in high school.
What a fun class to have, to watch that grow into all.
That's a good crew.
Yeah.
What year was it? Class
87. In our class, Lorenzo Fertitta, obviously. Me, Dana White was there, although he didn't quite make it all the way through to graduation. Cedric Creer. Who,
I was going to say, yes, Cedric.
Yeah, he was in our class, who may be our next mayor, hopefully.
He was a guest on our podcast, and we hosted a fundraiser for him that you were...
I think I was out of town that night.
Good call. But yeah, he was a guest on our podcast not too long ago. Yes, and also running for mayor.
Yes, running for mayor. Andre Agassi was briefly in our class, but then he left Vegas to go to school in Florida.
Man, what a class.
Yeah, we had a great class. Yeah,
it's probably never been a class like that.
No, I don't think so. But there's others, Perry Rogers, who was an agent for Andre for many years, and now he's an agent for others, and he was in our class. Another buddy of mine, his name was Kurt Magleby. He became a banker, and then he later arranged the financing for the Golden Nugget for us. Yeah, so it was.
And what business was your family in when they came out here?
Well, my father worked in casinos, mostly in the sports side of it.
Okay.
In other members of, my father, and then I had uncles that came out to Las Vegas. My great uncle, he was the first, came out in the late 60s, early 70s when sports betting became legal in the actual hotels. which I believe the Union Plaza, now the Plaza, was the first hotel to have a sports book actually.
You can call it Union Plaza because it shows you've been in Vegas a long time. I like when people call it the Union Plaza.
Yeah. I still have a hard time remembering it's only Plaza.
And you are right. We've had it come up a few times, I think, on this podcast that it's the first sports book in Las Vegas was here at the Plaza.
That's right. Well, not the first sports book. The first sports book in a casino, in a hotel.
Yeah, sorry. Yes. First hotel casino sports book.
They had to be separate before. Integrated. Yeah.
There was other ones before, of course, but the first one.
Oh yeah. They used to be just standalone places.
Right.
And there were a lot downtown. The original Leroy's was just right here on Bridger. I forget what street, but right over there.
Bridger, yeah.
Yeah, Bridger. And there was a lot of them. Churchill Downs was another one. Santa Anita was one. Some real old ones. And then, of course, a lot of them on the Strip.
They were just freestanding on the Strip.
Freestanding, standalone places, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That must have been unbelievable. They probably were lines out the door when there was like big fights in town. And
oh, yeah. But that was a bit before my time.
Right.
Because that was early 70s. I was just a kid then.
To prepare for this podcast, Jonathan told me to research Bob Martin.
Bob Martin, yeah. He was an idol of mine. Yeah.
How come?
Bob Martin was probably the first odds maker, bookmaker that really took bookmaking to the mainstream. He was a pioneer of his industry here in Las Vegas. He operated many of those standalone sports books. He was involved.
The Churchill Downs.
Churchill Downs, and many people who study that sort of thing say that the Churchill Downs was like the first real, modern sports book in Nevada, because he took it to a different level. And bookmakers all over the country, all over the world, followed whatever point spreads he came out with. And he was generally considered.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, he was considered to be like the godfather of it. He really was.
And think about how cool that must be to copy their lines, because it's not like today where the flow of information is so prevalent.
That's right.
Like, how are you setting a line in 1970?
Like before the computer.
You know what I mean? You're not Googling who's injured, who's not injured,
No.
You're not you can't Google form guides. There's nothing.
Nothing. No.
Where are you pulling up lines
The
from
only
those
thing
days?
I know that he did was, my uncle had done that too, was that he would get, he had people in most major cities around America send him the Sunday newspapers, to get all the stats and so forth, the stories, sports stories of all the teams around the countries. That's one thing to do for professional sports, like football or whatever, but for all of the dozens and dozens of colleges, it's quite a bit of work to
It must have been a lot of opportunity for the shop guys.
Oh, God.
Can you imagine?
Well, just a real simple example. If I remember one is particularly when Dallas Cowboys played the Pittsburgh Steelers in the Super Bowl. A lot of gamblers in Dallas.
What year is this?
It was Super Bowl 14, so like 1980, I think.
Okay.
But a lot of gamblers in Dallas, a lot of gamblers in Pittsburgh. The gamblers in Pittsburgh obviously wanted to bet Dallas. Bet the Steelers.
Right.
And opposite in Dallas. So the sports books, the bookmakers in Pittsburgh had 1 point spread. The bookmakers in Dallas had quite a different point spread. And that one fell in the middle.
Wow.
So the guys that had access to all that, they cleaned up. Yeah.
Incredible. What an industry it became. But he was the guy that you attribute to a lot of the early days of sports betting, Bob Martin?
Sports betting in Nevada, in Las Vegas anyway. Yeah.
Do you know where he
Sports
worked
book.
after Churchill Downs?
Plaza?
Well, yeah, he was here. He I think he was like a consultant here.
With Jackie Gorn?
Jackie Gone, Johnny Quinn.
Okay.
Johnny Quinn, who I think is on your menu.
Johnny Quinn is on the Oscars menu.
Yeah.
Good memory.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's like
exactly.
he was like the gentleman bookmaker. I think people called him. Huh.
And was the bookmaking back then like you just call your bookie and place the bet, or did you have to physically go in and write the ticket out?
You mean for the sports books?
Yeah.
You had to go in.
You still had to go physically.
Yeah, but then later, I think like maybe in the late 80s, they had phone accounts. Obviously, way before the internet.
Right.
Yeah. But then that went away for a while. I think it was a regulation thing.
And then you had to come back.
Yeah. Then you had to come back. But there were some problems. For example, there was a sports book from a guy called Gary Austin on the Strip. He had one of these standalone sports books, and this was later. This was like late 80s, and he tried to fancy himself as being, like the biggest bookmaker in town, and you could bet, high limits there. And so many of the gamblers opened up phone accounts there, but that meant you had to deposit your money to have your money on deposit so that you could bet with. But then, one day they announced that they had closed. They were out of business. So
Right.
all the money that was on deposit was just lost.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like the crypto guy that just screwed everyone.
Very similar to that. Exactly like that.
Right.
Yeah. And I don't think Gary Austin's been back in Vegas.
Right. I don't think he's coming back anytime soon.
Yikes.
You had mentioned being from Pittsburgh, and I
Yeah.
think of people like the folks at South Point, a lot of Pittsburgh there.
Yep.
A lot of great sports book heritage out of Pittsburgh,
Yeah.
despite the fact that, what was the thing about that? Oh, it was illegal.
Yeah. Yeah. Supposedly I had heard that. Yeah, it was illegal.
Is that Jimmy Vaccaro?
Yeah.
He's from Pittsburgh as well?
Jimmy Vaccaro's
Yeah.
from Trafford, Pennsylvania, which is not far from Pittsburgh. Yeah.
Okay, to go back to after you graduate, and then in 1990 you started Las Vegas Reservation Systems.
Yes.
Tell us about that. How did you get that idea? What is it?
Okay, so I had a job when I was in high school at a company called Las Vegas Referrals, which was a reservation company for Las Vegas hotel rooms. The owner of that company had a deal with Circus at the time, where customers would call Circus or walk up to the hotel front desk and looking for a room. Circus was notorious in those years for being sold out literally every night of the year. So the business was the hotel would refer people to Las Vegas Referrals to have them help make people's reservations at other hotels. And I worked at that company. It was a little hole-in-the-wall phone room, not far from where the Stratosphere Hotel is now. And it's sort of like, it was an amazing business because they got thousands and thousands of calls every day for people looking to make hotel rooms reservations. And the guy was making a fortune. And as a young man, still a teenager, I realized what a great opportunity that was. So that's what gave me the idea. And then when I was in college, one of my courses was I had to write a business plan for some business idea, and I based it off of that. And then I brought it back to Lorenzo Fertitta's father, Frank Fertitta. I showed him the idea, and I was really fortunate because right at that time, he was building the tower at Palace Station, which was adding like 600
This is
rooms.
in the 90s?
This was 1989.
Okay.
Yeah. And, I showed him my business plan. And he obviously, in those days, everybody knew about Circus and how that referral business worked. And he liked the idea, and he financed it. He gave me the money to start it, with the idea that I would also push a lot of rooms to Palace Station to help him fill that new tower.
Smart.
Yeah, and then the business just took off.
Were any of his kids involved in it?
Oh yeah. Actually, the Fertitta family owned 80%, and I owned 20%. He gave me 20% to run it. And then another lucky thing happened, lucky for me anyway, was that in 1993, Station Casinos went public. And therefore, that created a need for them to divest of my little company. And so I had to buy it from them. The funny thing was, he came to me and said, I'm sorry, you're going to have to buy us out. And I said, well, that's great, but I don't have any money. So they arranged it so I could pay them off every month. And that's what happened.
And he was a good guy to work with?
He was the best. There was nobody better.
Really?
Of all the great people I've met in Las Vegas, he was he was my
So this
idol.
is Frank Fertitta.
He's junior. Lorenzo and Lorenzo's brother Frank is Frank the third.
Yeah.
Their father was junior. He was the best. I adored him. He was the classiest, smartest, most generous guy I ever knew.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah. He
How
was
cool.
he was really something. Anyway, so I had to buy them out in '93, and then in '96 the internet came along, and we went online, and the business just exploded again. And he would always tease me like I saw that coming,
Wait, I do have and I'm sorry to ask this, but how did people book rooms before the internet?
On
Like
the
you just
telephone.
call every single hotel and say, hello, do you have any rooms? And what's
Exactly.
the rate?
That's why. That's. I know it sounds archaic, right? Or they'd go to a travel agent, but there was no internet, so you would have to call an 800 number, a toll-free number. And the reason our business worked was because you could just dial one number and get room rates and availability at all the hotels.
And how did you have that information?
Well, what we did was we contracted with all the hotels we worked with. We bought blocks of rooms at each of the hotels, whether it was 5 rooms or 10 or 50 rooms a night. Later, it became hundreds, but we had a certain inventory of rooms that were just for us each night. Mm-hmm. We kept track of our own inventory, and we priced them accordingly.
And if you didn't use them, you lose them?
Generally, no.
Just could turn them back to them within a certain amount of time.
Yeah, we would have to turn them back. Back then, it was a lot different than it is now, but typically, we had to turn them back in probably 2 or 3 days ahead of whatever the date was. Yeah.
Okay.
So the internet just revolutionized that. I mean, now you're flying.
Yeah. The internet was just, it changed the whole world. We were in one of those unique businesses where it was really the perfect application for the internet. We didn't have a physical inventory that we needed a warehouse for, and we got paid for our sales in real time, even though we didn't have to pay for them ourselves until after the people came and went.
And Tim made me think about this the other night when we were having some drinks. He told me about, when you think about it, like somebody buys a room at the Plaza through Expedia. Expedia is holding that money for months and months and months.
That's right.
In advance until they come here, stay here, and then the money gets released once they actually have their stay. But they get to hold that money as opposed to us holding that money.
Yeah, that's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
That's how, I never had any debt on our business because I didn't need any. It was self-financing.
Right.
Because as long as I didn't go out of business, because I was holding everybody's money, that's how I was paying for the rooms, and the new money coming in would pay for the old rooms that I reserved, previously.
So when did Tom come along?
Okay, so we graduated college in '91, and I was just getting Las Vegas reservation systems, as it was called then, off the ground. And Tom would come to Las Vegas on the weekends, and we were close friends and we'd hang out a lot, but I was busy working all the time, so he would oftentimes jump in and help. And then the thing with Tom was he wanted to be a sportscaster, like a Bob Costas. And
he's got a voice and a face for it.
He does. A handsome guy, great voice. And but it was slow. And his first job was a sportscaster in Victorville, California, a few hours from here. And, not glamorous in any way. So I think he was looking forward to come to Vegas as often as he could. And then, I just wanted him, he said, listen, we're great friends. I trust you. And then later I was about to buy the business from stations. So look, I need help. And I encouraged him to give up the broadcasting dream and move to Las Vegas. And he did.
And he became a partner in the company.
Yes, yeah. We and then just almost simultaneously when I bought out stations, he then became a 50-50 partner with me.
And what did Las Vegas reservation systems turn into? How did it grow?
Well, of course, the biggest thing was the internet, and then that really, it exploded. We were doing, I would say probably before the internet, we were probably doing, I don't know, $20,000, $30,000 a day worth of room reservations. And then by 1998, 99, it was several $100,000 a day. And then when we sold it in 2000, it was about $1 million a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you sold it to?
We sold it to Expedia.
Expedia.
Yeah.
What was that like, to Microsoft's Expedia? How did that deal?
That was interesting. We wanted to go public ourselves, but that was in 1999, and everyone knows now about the .com crash, and that was right when it happened. And so we were going into the sort of the teeth of that whole downward pressure with the tech stocks. So it was going to become increasingly difficult for us to go public. But we were doing a tremendous amount of business with Expedia. At the time, they were focused on airline tickets, and not much on hotels. So we ourselves were advertising on Expedia to sell our hotels. And it became such a big relationship that the discussion came about that they would acquire us.
Were they easy to deal with? Good guys to do a deal with?
Yeah, a totally different culture.
Right.
I mean, it couldn't be more different. Very, very different. All these tech guys from Seattle. They'd come down to Vegas, and it was sort of a culture clash. But obviously, very, very smart guys.
Did Frank wonder why he gave it to you for so cheap?
Yeah, like I said, he used to tease me because when he sold it to me, it was just a tiny little operation,
business, yeah.
And then the internet changed it, and but he was very happy for us. He was extremely happy.
That's how you know he's a good
How
guy.
exciting.
No, there was nobody better.
And how old were you
when
you sold it?
Well, 2000, I was 32.
So you're a 100 millionaire at 32.
Well, I had to cut that up with Tom.
Okay, you and Tom each had done very well at 32.
Yeah.
Wow.
I had to split that with Tom. No, I didn't have to. You know what I mean? I was happy
of course.
Yeah.
You were partners.
Yeah.
And that was Travelscape. When did it change from Las Vegas reservation systems to Travelscape?
Okay, so I think like in '98, because the reason we changed the name was because before we were only selling Las Vegas, and then when the internet happened, it was an easy jump to say, we have all the infrastructure and the technology to sell hotel rooms. We could sell hotel rooms in Florida or Hawaii or Europe or New York, wherever. So we needed a more generic name, and we settled on Travelscape.
There's like a lot of people, if they
Thank you,
just
sir.
got like $50 million, would just retire and be done. But you had quite more to do.
Yeah, I was
32.
I was still very young.
32. What are you going to do?
Take some time off, go travel. I don't know.
We did a
you
little of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
We did a little of that. I was too young to just do nothing.
And you knew you wanted to be you had a sports background, or you enjoyed it growing up around it, so you knew you wanted to be in the gaming business, or how did that come to be? I mean, this is when I sort of became aware of you, because everyone knew you guys as the face of downtown, frankly. You were the faces of downtown in
For a while,
2005.
Because then you moved to Golden Nugget, so how did that happen?
Right.
Well, a few things. I was too young to just do nothing. I mean, to be quite honest, the money was great, but it was, I think 11 years by that point that I started Travelscape, a 7-day-a-week job, working all the time, to then all of a sudden nothing. That was quite an adjustment, which I'll be honest, I wasn't well suited for. It was hard to make that adjustment. And
I was just talking this last night with someone about how when guys are young like yourself, or even Tony Hsieh, or the way I feel now, which is you're so vested in a business or a building, it becomes your persona, it becomes your life, and then suddenly it's taken from you.
Yeah.
You can totally go off the rails. I mean,
listen, I freely admit there was some depression involved. I loved the idea of going to work every day and working hard and trying to achieve the next goal. Then all of a sudden it's over. You have to search for the next thing. You have to figure out what you want to do. And growing up in Vegas, the idea of owning a casino, to me, was like there was nothing better. That was the pinnacle. That was, what else could you ever want? And then what had happened, though, was I believe it was 2001 when Kirk Kerkorian bought out Mirage Resorts. Steve Wynn's company took it over.
And Kirk Kerkorian, for anyone that doesn't know, is the legendary owner of MGM.
That's right. Yeah, one of the true Vegas, giants.
Yeah.
So that means then Kirk Kerkorian's company, MGM, then owned the Golden Nugget, Las Vegas, Golden Nugget, Laughlin, the Mirage, and the Bellagio, and the casino in Biloxi, Mississippi, Beau Rivage. Then MGM, listen, we had been dealing with all the hotels in Las Vegas through Travelscape, so I knew a lot of the executives and had relationships with them, and Tom especially. Tom's great at relationships, and the word was MGM was considering selling the Golden Nugget, the 2 Golden Nugget properties, Laughlin and Vegas, because there was too much overlap with their properties. They had their own Las Vegas, their strip property, the MGM, and then they end up with Mirage and Bellagio. What did they need the Golden Nugget for? Where did it fit into their portfolio? Yeah. So there was some overlap, and they took on a lot of debt when they bought out
Steve
Mirage
Wynn.
Resorts. Yep.
So you didn't buy it from Steve Wynn?
No, we bought it from. We bought it from. I know a lot of people think that, even though I've always had the relationship with Steve, but no, we didn't buy it from him.
Wow.
Yeah, because it was right after he had sold Mirage.
So how long did MGM own it for? Not long.
Well, we bought it in 03, so yeah, like
2
a couple
years.
of years. Yeah, not long at all.
Interesting. So they just basically had it, bought it, sold it as part of it. They bought it as part of a portfolio and then sold it off.
Yes, yeah, and then.
Did you work with Alex Yemenigian on that deal?
No, not really.
Okay.
He wasn't really involved in that transaction with us, and Alex and I are close friends.
Right.
We knew each other, and obviously I got a tremendous amount of respect for him. But he really wasn't involved in the transaction so much. No. Then, but for Tom and I, we were sort of looking around for what properties we could acquire, and Golden Nugget was sort of rumored to be possibly in play, and the other one was what is now the Westgate, the old Las Vegas Hilton.
Okay.
And it was similar because at that time it was owned by a company called Park Place, and Park Place also owned a casino in Laughlin, which was the Flamingo.
Okay.
I don't even, is it still the Flamingo now?
No,
It used to be the Flamingo.
It's called, I think they still own it as well. It's Harrah's.
Is it Harris?
I think
Yeah, it has to be a Harris property.
Yeah, it's Harris, yeah.
But at the time it was called the Flamingo.
Okay.
Laughlin. Yeah. Okay. So and both deals were contingent on you had to buy them both. You couldn't just buy Vegas because they wanted to get rid of Laughlin. We didn't want Laughlin, which was foolish. But you had to buy them. If you were going to buy it, you had to buy them both.
Okay.
So we considered both Las Vegas Hilton. Oh, and the Hilton deal, they also were toying with the idea of selling the old Caesars property in Lake Tahoe, which is not called Caesars anymore. I don't know what it's called. It's changed hands several times since.
Okay, I've never been up to Tahoe.
Yeah, great market for you, Jonathan.
Yeah, I should
think it's
visit.
a real underdeveloped market.
I would love to visit sometime.
You should. You should go up there.
It's nice in summer as well, isn't it?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Lake Tahoe is gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's one of the most beautiful places in America.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it really is. Well, anyway, we started talks with both the Hilton people and MGM, and we eventually made a deal for the Nugget.
downtown.
Yeah.
So give us a sense. What was downtown like in 2002, 3?
3. With the big exception of No Circa, because that's, I think, changed everything down here, to a certain degree. It wasn't that much different than now.
Tim. Oh, boy.
Well,
I've just wasted the last 15 years of my life, Dan.
No. What I mean to say is that when you compare Fremont Street to the Strip,
Yeah.
the same dynamic that makes Fremont Street so popular still exists today as it did 15 years
Back
ago,
then,
or as it did 40 years ago.
Right.
You can still go from one casino to the next in 2 minutes. You can't do that on the Strip.
Yeah.
There's it's very dense down here. There's a tremendous amount of people. I should have been more clear. That's what I mean when I said it hasn't changed.
I get it.
That part.
Yeah. Fremont Street's still a big draw.
Fremont Street's a huge draw.
Yeah.
I think we've talked about this, and another big change that happened for Fremont Street was Uber. Uber was a huge contributor to visitors downtown.
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah.
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 So.
Was there any like one fact that made you choose Golden Nugget over Westgate or the Hilton at the time?
Yeah. The Golden Nugget was Steve Wynn's old property.
Yeah.
Which I had obviously tremendous amount of respect for. It was, I believed at the time, the nicest property on Fremont Street.
Yep.
The amenities, the hotel rooms, the casino, the spa, the restaurants, so forth. And it had a great clientele, very, very loyal clientele
Yep.
of casino customers. And they competed with the Strip.
And did you sell off the Laughlin one?
We did, which turned out to be a mistake. But well, in a sense, it was a mistake.
But you sold it before you sold Golden Nugget downtown. You owned
Yes.
Golden Nugget for a little.
Oh no, pardon me. You know what? I just misspoke. No, we sold them together. But what had happened was I was in talks to sell Laughlin prior to us selling both of them.
Right.
Yeah, and that was a mistake because Laughlin had a lot of potential. But the problem that we had was it was difficult for us with a small organization.
Yeah, to commute.
To commute back and forth and to really devote the time and energy you need to make these joints successful.
I looked at a casino in Laughlin probably 4 or 5 years ago, and
Yeah.
I came to the same conclusion. Do I want to drive an hour and a half
Right.
and do the same thing I'm doing down here when I live and breathe this thing,
Yeah.
but now I got to commute? I just don't want to do it.
Yeah, for a fraction of the size of the business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I think your decision with Golden Nugget was brilliant, because when I look at Golden Nugget, and it's still to this day the best performer in downtown in terms of head count, in terms of many metrics. It's got the most rooms by far.
Yeah.
But Steve Wynn built it, and it was
Steve
just
Wynn
built the best way.
He did.
And they flow the best, and they
Yeah.
have the most logical layout. When you look at it over time, it has the best bones downtown. Its location is tough to beat as well. It just has so much going for it. Not to take anything away from what they do today there.
No,
and the
no,
business
no.
they do. But being built by Steve Wynn, having that brand, having that database,
It's a huge advantage. You know, one of the things that had always stuck out with me that I'll never forget when we were studying their numbers was, you know, I had reports on everything, and I just kept coming back to their slot machines won more money per machine per day than any major hotel in Las Vegas, anywhere.
Wow.
On the Strip, downtown, anywhere. And it was hard to imagine. Now, you could say that, well, that was simply a matter of, at the time, 1,900 rooms and only 1,200 machines. They probably should have had more machines. Well, yeah, but you could say the same for all the downtown joints. With the Nugget, highest win per unit per day.
What was it like owning a casino at 33, 34? Didn't you do a TV show as well?
Yeah, we did, which was sort of good and bad. The TV show,
What was the bad?
well, tremendously stressful. It was incredibly
What was the
demanding.
show called?
It was called Casino.
Oh,
Yeah, it was. You can't imagine how good it was for business. It was unbelievable.
Wow.
Tom and I, for a time, turned into like sort of quasi-celebrities. It became almost impossible to walk through the casino. I mean, if you had, I remember one lady, you know, like a middle-aged woman, standing there with her husband in the middle of the casino at a blackjack table, telling her husband, "You got to take a picture right here because this is where that guy was at this table." I mean, just because that table was on TV, she had to have a picture of that table. And like that really woke me up. Like, just because something's on TV, it has this magical draw,
magical power.
and it was amazing.
I mean, you look the same thing up at the Palms.
Palms?
Palms
Well, they were the
same
first.
effect.
Yeah, and that was actually a big reason why we did it, because the Maloufs, we talked to the Malouf family about it, George Malouf. He told me the same thing. You know, they had that MTV show. Mm-hmm. I forget the name of it.
Real World.
Real World, that was it, yeah.
Thank you, Lisa.
And it was brilliant on his part to do that TV show. I don't know whose idea it was, but it was great. And he told me, look, you won't believe the people it draws. People will come here for no other reason, just because they saw it on
It is a crazy phenomenon. Even to this day, I have a good friend of mine from England. He's on a TV show called $1 Million Listing, the real estate show.
Oh.
You can't walk around with him without people stopping him for a picture.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Nuts. Yeah. It is. It was crazy.
Yeah. We should do a TV show here, Lisa.
Maybe.
Documentary on us.
Be a good one.
There are some good things that would be great for TV. That definitely.
I bet.
I'm
happen.
sure. So what was it?
The downside of it was that, look, there were cameras on us literally every waking moment. From time I got up, time I went to bed. And they had to find drama. So you almost create the
That's
drama.
exactly what he said, my friend. So now they try to create drama, and now he doesn't want that anymore.
It's not, yeah.
The forced drama is too much. The natural drama is fine, but it's not enough.
Yeah. And it's one of the things I got in trouble for was because Tom and I used to both live at Park Towers. We both had apartments there. And so they would get us in the morning, you know, talking about last night's numbers, you know, just something to talk about. And they had the idea one morning of, okay, look, here's what we're going to do. You guys are going to race to work. And Tim, you're going to tell Tom that you can get to work before him and he's lazy and everything. And you're going to, he gets to work after you. And then he's going to say, no. And then you guys are going to bet on it. Who gets to work first? So then it will turn into a race. Okay, so I'm like, gosh, what the hell? So, okay, we go through this, you know,
This race.
We go through this routine. Oh, Tom, you're so lazy. You get the work late. I'll get the work for you. We'll have a bet on it. So we bet $5,000. It was all bullshit. But,
right.
We all said, we agreed to bet $5,000. Well, they had helicopters, and they had our cars with cameras mounted on the cars.
Oh, God.
And then they showed us get into the car and then sort of peel away. And then that was it. Then I got out of that car and got into another car and drove to work. But it was all just for show. And then they had, all day they were filming with helicopters, showing our cars going down the freeway. Anyway, I don't know how many months later, when that scene got on TV, it showed my car going 90 miles an hour on the freeway. They showed a shot of my speedometer. But I wasn't even driving.
You weren't in the car, right?
I wasn't in the car.
Right.
Nevada Gaming Control Board called me in.
Oh, no.
Yeah. They said it was,
You're bringing the industry
promoting
to disrepute.
Unsafe driving. I shouldn't have done that. Why, it wasn't me.
That's a great one. It wasn't me.
It really wasn't. That was one time it wasn't.
Was that your first encounter with them?
No.
What can you share your other encounters?
Well, it depends. There
was quite a few.
At the Nugget?
One time we had a casino promotion. At the time, the TV show Sopranos was real big.
Okay.
It was the #1 show on TV. And so we had the idea of having the cast of The Sopranos come and do a meet and greet. We have a dinner. A couple of the actors spoke, and it was just a sort of a promotion for the.
Sounds like a great promotion.
Yeah, it was. It was very popular. I mean, because that TV show was extremely, popular, and so we had to pay them a lot of money to appear, and one of the things we did for them was we gave them promo chips. Because I wanted them to gamble in the casino with our customers. So I had to give them the chips to do it, promo chips. And that after the event, everyone goes down to the casino, and it was just one of those things where, you never seen luck like this. These guys could not win a hand. They just couldn't. Every hand they lost. And, celebrities are famous for not ever wanting to pay for anything. And I knew that as soon as they ran out of the free chips, they weren't going to keep playing. And that would be bad. I wanted them to, sit there with our customers. So this was a mistake, but I got behind the blackjack table where the actors were sitting, and for a few hands, and I made them win. Because I just said, okay, come on.
That might be one of the best things I've heard.
Yeah, that wasn't good.
Gaming frowned upon that, I'm sure. Okay.
Yeah, and that happened at say midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning that night. And I think 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock the next morning, I got a call from my lawyer. They knew about it already.
Wow.
Yeah.
What'd you say? How'd you explain it?
It wasn't
I
me.
just told them.
It wasn't me.
So then I had to agree, okay, no more dealing blackjack.
No more. Had you dealt blackjack before?
No.
You ever go to dealer school?
I actually did.
Okay.
Yeah, Lorenzo and Fertitta and I did once, but not for blackjack. We went for craps.
Craps, yeah. It's tough.
Neither one of us ever dealt craps, but we did go to.
But at least you know how to.
Yeah.
Roughly. Yeah, it's a tough game to deal.
Yeah.
Any what was the business for you? In terms of how was it for you to run that business? Did you enjoy it? You were there 2 years. How did it go? Did the business grow? Other than the TV show, of course.
Oh, yeah. Listen, it was very good for us. We increased the numbers dramatically over what they had been. And again, I think it was because the Golden Nugget in the few years. Well, remember, when Steve owned it, the Mirage opened in '89. So, his Las Vegas business migrated, much of it, to the Mirage in '89, and then later, especially when Bellagio opened in '98. So between '98 and then when MGM bought it in '01, then when we bought it in '03, it sort of became like a bastard child. They weren't really paying attention much to it anymore.
That's what happens.
That's what happened.
They get forgotten.
So there was a lot of low-hanging fruit.
You did create a monster there in those years in Steve Sear. I think that's where he became a monster, was with you.
Yeah.
At the Golden Nugget. He was on this podcast.
Was he?
And one of our most popular episodes we've ever done was Steve, because his stories were out of control.
A lot of
but
good
I
ones.
think you created that monster
Guilty.
at the Golden Nugget.
Guilty.
That's
Yeah.
where he learned everything.
He's a real aggressive guy, and I wanted the business, and he said he could get it. And, we were probably a little too aggressive. I came to learn later. But, listen, I can't deny that he did drive a tremendous amount of business. One of the guys that he had a relationship with was Larry Flint.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and
Did he play with you down there?
yeah, but so Steve tells me one day, I can get Flint, but he wants to meet you. I'm like, oh, what do you mean he wants to meet you? Like, oh, is this an audition? For what? Well, we flew down to L.A., went to his offices. We went up. He had offices in a high-rise building up to the top floor. There he was, sitting there behind this giant desk. And, talk about an interesting guy.
Yeah.
Very interesting guy. He loved to play. He loved to gamble. But he was very shrewd, very, very shrewd. And he knew these joints were competing for his business, so he drove a hard bargain.
So you met with him, and then he became a customer?
Yeah, he didn't
On
play
and
that
off,
much.
yeah.
I mean, he might have come in half a dozen
I don't know
times.
if I've ever told this to people, but he tried to buy the Las Vegas club from us,
didn't
but
know
he drove a hard bargain. I was like, no.
Yeah.
And we weren't really trying to sell it back then.
Right.
It wasn't until we ultimately did sell it that it made sense. But yeah, he tried to buy it. That was
Shrewd guy, and he owns. I mean, everyone knows he owns Hustler, but
Right.
he owns a lot of other things too. That not just on the pornography side. A lot of legitimate businesses, a lot of media,
Right.
and a tremendous amount of money.
yeah.
He was a successful guy.
And one other thing on the Golden Nugget, because we've been with you this is amazing, but we'll try to keep you not too long. But tell me, at the Golden Nugget, did you care about what was happening in downtown? Did you talk to Oscar Goodman? Or was it just
yeah.
we cared about the Golden Nugget?
No, I cared a lot. I cared a lot. To be honest, and this is no secret, I was always sort of skeptical of the Fremont Street experience.
I still am.
Yeah, I was, again, an old school guy. I remember when cars could drive on Fremont Street and how great that used to be when I was a kid. And I, sort of lost some of its charm.
Yeah.
And I was also concerned with some of the vendors out there, a little bit, not all of them, of course, but, it was starting to get a little too shady, I thought. But listen, it's all good because it drove traffic.
Yeah, and I think back then there was more issues, and even over the last decade, maybe there was more issues. I think there's a new group of guys very motivated to make downtown better that are now running it, and I think it's headed in a better direction.
Oh, listen.
You can debate the zip line and the canopy and all of that if you want, but ultimately it's headed in the right direction.
The numbers bear that out.
Right.
So, yeah,
Right.
there's no question. I agree with that.
Men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie.
That's right. Absolutely.
So
Wait, but then you sold the Golden Nugget a year later and made your second.
About 2.5 years later,
okay,
yeah.
and made your second $100 million. Not
Well, I had partners again.
Yeah.
wasn't Andre Agassi a partner in the
Yes, he
Golden
was.
Nugget? I
Yeah.
remember hearing that
Yeah.
as well, yeah.
We had we needed $50 million of equity when we bought it. Tom and I put up 37. Andre put up the rest. Oh, well, no, I'm sorry. Another gentleman, Chuck Mathewson, who was one of the founders of IGT. I'll tell you, you want to hear a funny story about Old Vegas? Here, Chuck Mathewson, another giant, a founder of IGT.
Yeah.
The reason he got into the Nugget deal with us was because when we were doing our due diligence to buy the Golden Nugget, one of the things I wanted to see was all the suites, or the bigger suites. I wanted to see how could we compete for the Strip. As well, there's one suite we really can't show you. Like, well, what do you mean? Why not? As well, it's because it's a suite, but it belongs to Chuck Mathewson, and he uses it as his home when he's in Las Vegas. He doesn't live here permanently. Steve Wynn told him he could use it, and then when MGM bought the hotel, they have such respect for him that they just let him continue to use it. I said, well, what? What do you mean? he lives there? Well, he's here maybe a few days a month and everything. So I said, he's got to go. But then, I knew who he was.
He founded IGT.
Yeah, him and Cyred. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, he was one of the founders. they're the guys that came up with progressive jackpots,
That's big.
Quartermania, all of it, so Megabucks, all of it. And anyway, so he calls me one day, and I go see him, and I quickly realize, what am I, an idiot? I'm not going to kick. He's the greatest,
Right.
And he's, someone that should be very respected and everything. And he says, I like you guys, I'll go in with you. How much money do you need? Okay. So that's how it happened.
He went from having a room to having the whole place.
Yeah.
A piece of the whole place.
Yeah. Although I don't know if he was there 5 times. I honestly, there was a big suite up there for him, but it was hardly ever there.
Did you want to sell it, or were you forced to sell it?
Well, I didn't want to sell it, but it was the right move financially to sell it, probably the wrong move on a personal level to sell it. So I mean, obviously I can have regrets because look at what happened to downtown. But it was becoming clear that unless we really expand it, it would take us many, many years to achieve the amount of economic return as what was being offered to us right then.
Was it Landry's? Was it Tillman
Yes,
Fertitta?
yeah, Tillman Fertitta. He was very aggressive. He really wanted to buy it, and he kept upping the offer. We were resistant. Finally it became like, how can we turn this down? And so that's what we did.
Was he good to negotiate with, or was he tough as he seems? Yeah.
Tough but fair.
Yeah.
Obviously, brilliant business guy. Yeah. No bones to pick with that.
Yeah. Boy, do I wish you were still downtown though. I love the entrepreneurialism and the pioneer spirit. Like that's what downtown is built on. It's
a lot of.
Not that they haven't done great things with it though. That's nothing that get taken away from what they've done.
Yeah, it becomes corporate though.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, listen, I can't say no regrets. I mean, it was a great ride. It was very good to us. Very good to us.
So then you joined Steve Wynn.
Yeah. Well, so I've known Steve Wynn since I was a kid, casually, and obviously knew who he was, but, had met him. His daughter and I, his daughter was in our high school class.
Wow.
Which one?
Jillian.
Jillian. Okay.
Yeah. And his older daughter was a couple years ahead of us.
Yeah.
Anyway, you got to remember, Las Vegas back then. When you say you often hear the cliche, everyone knew everyone. Obviously that's not literally true, but practically speaking, you kind of did. Mm-hmm. There was very few degrees of separation. My family knew that guy's family or his family or her family. So it was a very, very close-knit community. Mm-hmm. And even if you didn't know somebody, really well, you knew of them. You knew of their story or you knew their family.
I actually meant to ask this, I'm sorry, Tim, but did you meet Jackie Gorn while you were down here and down at the Nugget?
No, I think...
he was probably coming towards the end of his
I think he was
time as well.
Sort of, getting old there.
Yeah.
I actually knew Michael Gaughan,
right.
His son, better. And I didn't really ever have too much interaction with Jackie Gaughan. I met him a handful of times, but...
Right. But it was a small town. Everyone...
Yes, very small town. And the Steve Wynn thing was... And when we bought the Nugget... he was obviously happy for us and, for Tom and I, wished us congratulations, came down to the hotel, had dinner with us. And, I called him for many things, asked for his advice on a lot of stuff. And, he was very gracious and, happy to help any way he could. When we sold, I went and had dinner with him. And at the time, this was in 05, 06, he was thinking about developing more properties on the Wynn golf course. Mm-hmm. And I said, gee, I'd really love to be involved with that. Whatever you're going to do, Tom and I would love to be involved. I sort of volunteered Tom, And, so, well, why don't we, come talk about it? Then it went on to one of these sort of like many months of conversations. And let's do something. And so Tom and I joined. But what had happened, that was probably this is later
few
years later.
Yeah,
this was like in 08. So, we decided to join in '08 with the idea that maybe they're going to develop the golf course and there could be some opportunities there. And then Macau was getting rolling, and gone to Macau a few times.
On behalf of Win.
Yeah, got educated on that whole
Yeah.
thing, which is a whole other world.
Well,
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's when the whole financial crisis happened.
Right.
And the Encore was just about to be opened, so we helped with that, and it quickly became, apparent that there was not going to be any development of the golf course. But I loved being there, and I really enjoyed, I took on more and more responsibilities there, mostly with the casino, which is really my interest.
Where you have the most passion.
Yeah, and I loved it.
Did you have anything to do with the sports book there?
Nothing, absolutely nothing.
What about the Nugget? Did you run your own sports book there?
Yeah, we ran our own sports book.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had your chance. You had your chance there to visit.
Yes, I
the
did.
sports book.
Yeah. But one independent joint.
Yeah.
Not.
Was it different having to work for someone as opposed to doing your own thing? Did you feel like there was a difference, or did you treat it the same way?
For
as if
me,
it's
no,
yours?
because I was lucky. Steve gave me a lot of autonomy. I very few times I remember him telling me I want you to do this, I want you to do that. I don't even remember that. But working with him, Mark Shore, was great.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a job. It was just, I love being there.
Going to the Win every day would not feel like
Yeah.
a job for me.
No, it was great.
Yeah.
It was great. I think the hardest part of the job, to be honest, was going to Macau. And
Yeah.
for a time there, I was going like every 6 weeks. That was hard. That was hard.
And Boston didn't exist yet.
No, Boston didn't happen yet.
And what was it like to work under Steve Wynn? I mean, I often say, like, for me, if I could learn from anyone, he would be the guy I'd
Yeah.
like to learn from. Not necessarily everything, but certainly on this town. The few times I got lucky enough to have a dinner with him, or he knew stories. And somebody said something interesting about him. It didn't matter who's at the table with him. You could have a president of America. You could have anybody. When he's at the table, people listen to him.
Yeah.
How? I mean, that's just amazing.
He, no matter what you think you might know,
Yeah.
you could always learn more. And he amazed me about, the depth of knowledge that he had on any particular subject. Whatever it might be, if I had, I thought this would be the right thing to do or that would be the right thing to do, and then come up in conversation. No, here's what I think you should think about. Instead of going left or right, he comes up with an idea, you go up. It's just
He knows
something that you never thought of.
Yeah.
And here's why, he would tell you. It was just, it was a great experience, a very, very good experience.
Yeah, he knows about wine, he knows about art, he knows about design. But
Yeah.
the one thing I didn't know he knew about, he knows everything about bingo.
Yeah, well,
He knows
that's where we
everything
gotta
about
start.
bingo. He told me how to read the numbers in a certain tone that makes the player want to play longer. I couldn't believe what I was.
really?
And he did a demonstration at the dinner table of like 3:15. Like your voice has to be at a certain tone to make the customer want to stay longer in that.
Very engaging, right?
Interesting.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Wow.
But okay, so hold on. I have to say something about Tim. So one night I was having dinner at SW, at the Win,
Yeah.
and there's this guy at the table, and he's abusing the staff. He's being rude to the staff. He's abusing the general manager, and I'm blown away by what I'm witnessing. And he's eating food that's not on the menu. So I say to the general manager, who I knew a little bit, when the guy left, I said, "Excuse me, how can you let this guy be so abusive to the staff and say these things?" He goes, "This is nothing. He does this every night." He goes, "The other night he was in here and he took one of our executives in a headlock." I said, "Holy crap, who is this guy?" He goes, "He's one of our biggest customers." I said, "What's his name?" He goes, "Tiger Mike."
Okay.
So I went home that night, I start Googling Tiger Mike, and I hear these insane stories. Well, fast forward 10 years, he's now sadly passed away,
Yeah.
but fast forward 10 years, the gentleman he took in a headlock, allegedly at SW, was Mr. Tim Post.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, really?
It was. We got into a fight.
So who's Tiger Mike?
Tiger Mike. Who's Tiger Mike? Tiger Mike is a man. His name was Mike Davis. He was an oil man. He had fabulous wealth, then lost it, then made it again and lost it. Like the kind of money that would be like a Forbes 400 type money. I don't think he ever got out of the 8th grade, no formal education. He was, rather old. He died, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, 6 years ago. He was, well into his 80s, I think. And he was also a big gambler, huge gambler, probably a degenerate gambler. And, he could never get enough to gamble on. You could never gamble high enough. But he was extremely gruff, very obnoxious.
To say the least.
Yeah, to say the least.
Right.
But, if you got to know him a little bit, you realize it was all an act.
Right.
It wasn't all an act. He was obnoxious, but, he did have some heart. And his history in Vegas goes way back, and it's real fascinating. He was in a romantic relationship with Phyllis McGuire, who's from the famous McGuire sisters. Mm-hmm. And at that same time, Phyllis McGuire was also in a relationship with a very notorious gangster, Sam Giancana. I mean, this is nothing new.
Right, it's public record.
Public record.
Yeah.
And this was like in the 60s. And, guy like Mike Davis, he never went anywhere without carrying a gun. And then you got a gangster. This was not going to end well, right? And Phyllis McGuire at the time, you see pictures of her, very, very beautiful woman. Mm-hmm. And so I think eventually, even for a guy like Giancana, who was a tough guy, I'm sure.
Mike Davis,
Mike
unknown
Davis
quantity.
He was no pushover, and they kind of sort of made an arrangement where they just sort of left each other alone, I guess. Again, I can only speculate.
It's actually on the Mob Museum wall.
Is it?
A little bit of that story is on the Mob Museum
kid.
website about Phyllis McGuire.
Is that right?
And Sam Giancana, and the party she used to have at her house every year.
Yeah.
Isn't there a replica? I think it's in the thing. There's a replica of the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, I'll tell you how that happened. So the source of Mike Davis' original money came from his first wife,
right?
Which was a lady, I forget her first name, but her last name was Bonfil, Bonfil, I think. Her family owned the Denver newspaper, big, rich media family. And they literally were descendants of Napoleon. Right? They were French. Wow. They were from French aristocracy. So anyway, they owned all of this antique French furniture. And Mike was that lady's chauffeur. The lady was way older than Mike.
Okay.
He was her chauffeur, her driver.
Right.
They fell in love. They get married. She dies. He gets all the money and all those antiques. Then later, when Phyllis McGuire is building her house in Vegas over in Rancho Circle, Mike sends all these French furniture, all these French antique furniture over there. So it takes on like a French motif, like a chateau. And then they build this giant replica of the Eiffel Tower in her house.
Yeah, I think it's still there.
It is still there. It is. And he lived next door. Lived next door. He had a house right next door to hers.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, insane.
Right.
And listen, in my days at the Wynn, they were both still alive.
Yeah.
And she would come in there and, they would have dinner together. He treated her, amazingly. He treated her very well. And, he would tell me that he gave her, the money, the jewelry, unbelievable jewelry.
Yeah.
Obviously, the antiques, the house. But he also gave her oil wells and leases to natural gas fields and oil fields.
The guy was a maniac. I only ever saw him wearing like a tan suit, like a tan nylon suit.
He wore the same exact thing every single day. Not literally the same thing, but he had hundreds of the same exact suit made, and they were almost all of them were khaki, and they were sort of like a Western style with a white shirt and a khaki suit. And I asked him one day, obviously a lot of people ask, but why khaki? He said, well, because when he was in the, I don't know if it was Army or Marine or whatever, they all wore khakis, and he liked khaki. So when he had these suits made, he just figured, all right, khaki goes with everything. I want to wear khaki every day. That's why it was khaki.
Wow. Huh. Yeah. And then the story I told, but basically he was demanding a room from you, and you wouldn't give him the room he wanted.
Here's what happened. He came and he gambled every single day. He would come in for dinner and then play blackjack. Right. He was the absolute worst gambler you could ever imagine, or the perfect customer for a casino because he had a ton of money.
You never told me this. Someone else told me he was the biggest loser in Wynn's accounts.
He was. He was. He still may.
Think about that's a big gambler. If you're the biggest gambler on Wynn's losing account, you're a big gambler.
He still may be the single largest loser in the history of Wynn. I don't know if it's surpassed since, but at the time he was when he died. But he would play literally every day. He'd drive into the hotel. He had a driver bring him. He would have dinner at SW, and then he'd go play blackjack. But the thing with him was, if he won $5,000 or $10,000, he'd stop. But if he lost, he'd just keep going. Right. And you know, I've seen him, you know, be down $500, try to chase 500 and lose $1 million. It happened often. It wasn't like something crazy.
Yeah.
But anyway, he had a lady friend in town that he wanted a room for, but it was a particular suite on the Fairway, a Fairway villa, and not just anyone. He had a particular one he wanted. So he called and he said he wanted that suite that night. I was like, okay, you could have it, but the problem was there was somebody staying there. There was another customer staying in that suite, and secretaries, everybody, someone came to me and said, you know, what are we going to do? He's going crazy. You know, he wants this particular suite. Everyone's afraid to tell him no. So I, you know, okay, let me talk to him. And so I call him and Mike, you can't have this suite. You can give it any other one you want, but you can't have that one. There's a customer here. We're not kicking him out. God damn it, you know, start swearing, cussing. He was very vocal, a lot of profanity, and he demanded to have that suite. So finally, I just thought to myself, you know, what's he going to do? I'm not going to win this argument. Okay, Mike, you got it. And okay, then I'll give him another one later. And anyway, he wanted the key. So he sent somebody down to the hotel to get the key. So they called me. I said, tell him we don't have it yet. The guy, the housekeeping's still doing the room. So we kind of like stalled him. And then later, he starts coming down for dinner. By the time he got there for dinner, now he's really mad. You know, now he's really, really mad. And I was having dinner myself at SW, and he finds me. He comes storming in there, and next thing you know, yeah, we got into a fight. He grabbed me, I grabbed him.
But keep in mind, he's like an 80-year-old man at this point.
Yeah.
He's not like a spring chicken. I mean,
no.
He's an older guy in a suit, just grabbing you.
Yeah, he right there in the restaurant. Yeah. Anyway, but now the rest of the story, though, was a half an hour later, everything was fine.
Yeah.
We were all best friends again.
Yeah, he seems like that probably was.
Yeah, you know, Mike, you can't have the suite. That's all there is to it.
You had to have a fight to get there, but you got there.
We had a fight. Finally,
oh my gosh.
Understood. Yeah, but anybody wants to know a little bit about Mike, just Google Mike Davis or Tiger Mike Davis office memos.
Yes,
they're on.
It's so good. It's so good.
And they're real.
Yes, I know. It's amazing. And it's like, if you see me in the hallway, don't stop me. I don't want to talk to you. He put that out as a memo to his employees.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
You think there's no way this could be real, but if you knew him, you're like, actually, yeah, you can believe it.
It's fantastic.
Wow.
Well, Tim, we've kept you way longer. I obviously, we want to know, you left Win, and we want to know what you're up to now.
Oh.
But we might have to have you come back, because I know you're working some pretty cool things in the future.
Yeah.
But what do you think, Lisa? We have a few more minutes.
If you have more time.
Sure. Nothing to do with gaming.
Okay. Was it easy when you left Win, though? Were you depressed? Were you down? Was it tough to leave the industry, or were you done? You were done.
Well, you know, I miss it. I miss it. You know, if the right opportunity came along, you know, who knows?
Come and join us.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. I still love Fremont Street. I always have an affinity for it. I certainly do. But no.
Cool that we're sitting here looking at it there in front of us as we're talking about it.
It's a great view sitting here. It's got to be the best view in downtown. I mean, there never will be anything like this.
No,
it's the best. It's the best. No, for myself, obviously I manage a lot of my own investments, you know, in the market or real estate. The one big project that Tom and I are working on, Tom had this great idea to develop a surf park. We haven't had one in Las Vegas before. There's a few around the country. It's a really neat idea. We've got a couple of locations that we're zeroing in on, but we also have one under development in the Miami area. So it will replicate the waves of the ocean for surfing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and like a
I think
beach
there's one
club.
in Dubai.
Is there?
I don't know.
I
Something
don't know
like
in
that.
Dubai.
Okay.
There's one in Waco, Texas, of all places, that is sold out for a year in advance. There's one up in Northern California, which is sort of a different concept, but same idea. And there are a few scattered around. There's a few more under development in Palm Springs area.
Okay.
And so I think it's a coming on thing. And hopefully, or at least we think that it we'll have a good market for it here in Vegas.
So that's what's keeping you busy these days.
Yeah. I'm not quite as busy as I used to be, but that's okay.
Yeah. I have to say, though, the town has changed so much. Like, it is
Yeah.
so corporate now. You
Very.
can't do the things that maybe even 20, 25 years ago you could do as an independent operator. I mean, yes,
Yeah.
I'm still an independent operator. Across the street's an independent operator.
Mm-hmm.
But, the Strip is very corporate these days. The town's changed. Have you noticed those changes
Oh, man.
as the city's
Yeah,
evolved?
yeah. So, I mean, I guess it's one of the curses of getting older. But, I'm one of those that believe the town had more charm, years ago.
Yeah.
And I know the growth has been great, and there's a lot of, trade-offs, good and bad, with that growth.
Right.
A lot of great economic development and huge opportunity for a lot of people. And, I love that. But the charm of the place, well, I don't say it doesn't have any charm. It's just different.
Of course.
And, you got the Las Vegas Strip, which is pretty much controlled by just two companies.
Right.
MGM and Caesars. And it's not to say that either one of those companies are bad. They both do a great job. They're both very successful. Obviously, they know what they're doing. But, years ago when the Strip was owned and operated by individual owners, and not just all corporate places, where, there was a Jonathan Jossel type person at each of the properties. Each of the properties then had its own personality,
Right.
and it's sort of its own charm, and it was I think far more interesting, far more entrepreneurial, and how about like things like entertainment? Used to be. Tom and I think Tom kept track. We saw Frank Sinatra 21 times.
Oh, wow.
And
I'm
it was
jealous.
at the end of his career, but
Yeah.
we both knew that seeing him would be something that we'd always remember.
Yeah.
And we did every
And probably
time.
in a room of a couple of hundred people.
We saw him at the Desert Inn, at the Riviera, where else? Later at the MGM. But the Desert Inn was most of them. And I think the Desert Inn showroom had like maybe 500 seats. That was it.
Have you seen our showroom down here?
Yes, I have. It's one of the old ones.
Yeah, it's great.
It's
great.
very intimate.
We just don't have a Frank Sinatra. We need a Frank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll never happen again.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what the tickets would cost to see Frank Sinatra. It probably was not $100.
No.
And this was in the early 90s.
Yeah. But without that transformation, you probably don't get the conventions. You probably don't get
Yeah.
the
Like
sports.
I said,
you don't get
this
the
is-
Raiders. You don't get the
Yeah.
Golden Knights. You don't get all of that.
Yeah,
It's
that's the
just-
trade-off.
That's the trade-off.
You get it. And, look, the town's made its bet, right?
Yeah.
They're going to give up a lot of that charm and entrepreneurialism and, take on the corporate side, and then you get all the other stuff.
Yeah.
And I get it, and that's progress. I get it. But it doesn't mean I don't miss what it used to be.
Yeah.
One last question.
Sure.
Do you have any advice for people starting out in their career?
Yes.
Go to Bishop Gorman.
Get in a good class of Bishop Gorman.
Yeah, that would be a help. It certainly was for me. Look, make good friends. But figure out what area of the industry that you want to work in, whether it's the hotel side, the gaming side, entertainment, food and beverage. Get a job, any job that you can in those departments, and learn as much as you possibly can. Because, look, everyone's got to have a great education. That's paramount. It's critical. You must have that. But it's nothing like getting real-world experience. And getting that experience will open your eyes to all sorts of things, and then you'll identify opportunities that might be out there, and then you can pursue those. But you have to get the experience first.
Very nice.
Well
Thank
said.
you so much. Thank you for
thank
joining
you.
us on the podcast.
My
Thank you for
pleasure.
all you've done for
This
Las
might be our
Vegas.
longest one we've ever done.
No kidding.
Great stories. Thank you.
Tim.
Thank you.
We'll be back again soon, but in the meantime, please rate, review, and subscribe. Tell your friends about On the Corner of Main Street, and of course, follow us on social. On Twitter and Instagram, it's @PlazaPod, and on Facebook, find us at Plaza Podcast. Or go right to the top and tweet Jonathan @JonathanJossel. We'll see you next time from right here on the corner of Main Street.